Today we discuss about the client server communication. Client server communication. Here is a picture. It shows what is a client server communication. These computers, two computers and a mobile phone, these are act as a client. This is a computer. This act as a server. I think using this picture you get the basic idea about client server communication. Actually, what is a client server communication? Several computers are connected to a large computer from which they get the information. That is, number of computers are connected to a large computer. This large computer is called a server. Number of computers connected to this server or large computer is called clients. The clients request for something and the server accept the request and give the information. This type of communication method is called client server communication. Request between the client and server. Here is the request between the client and server. A system who request for service is called client, and a system which provides service to the client is called server. In client server communication, there are two main components. The first one, which is client, and the second one is server. The client sends request to the server. The server responds to the client request. A system who responds to the client request is called a server. First, we discuss more about the client. A client is a piece of computer hardware or software that accesses a service from server. Here, two terms, hardware or software. That is, client is a hardware or software. Majority of students or teachers believe this client is a hardware component only. Not. Client is not a hardware component. It is hardware or software that acts as service made by the server. In case of server, means it is a piece of computer hardware or software that provides service to the client is called a server. There are two terms, the client and server. Commonly, the server is the term refers to the computer system which receives a request from the client, and the computer system which requests for information from the server is called client. There are different type of servers are commonly used. These are file server, print server, application server, domain server, web server, FTP server, mail servers. These are the different type of servers. There are another classification also. There are home server, mail server, mobile server, name server or DNS, name server or DNS, proxy server, sound server, web server, etc. There are a number of classifications. The main three types of servers are: first one, the database server; second one, web server; and third one, which is file server. Database server, web server, and file server. The example of the database servers are: what is the use of database server? The database server provides database services. Database means a collection of data stored in a file is called a database. This database server provides database service. Here is an example of database server. It is MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle database. These are the examples of database servers. These three are softwares. When these softwares, this MySQL or Oracle database or Microsoft SQL, these softwares are installed in a computer, this computer acts as a database server. Another server, which is web server. Web server provides website hosting. Here is an example. Apache HTTP server is a web server. Microsoft ISS is a web server. These are softwares. These softwares, when installed in a computer or a system, then this system acts as a web server. The purpose of web server is website hosting. The third one, which is file server. File server provides file services. Then, what are the main advantages and disadvantages of client-server communication? It is very secure, better performance, centralized backup, very reliable. These are the main advantages of client-server network. And what are the major disadvantages? Require professional administration, more hardware is needed, more software is needed, expensive dedicated software. These are the main disadvantages of client-server communication. Then here is a picture which show the main advantages of client-server communication. Their maintenance is very easy. It provides security, data processing capability, respect of the location, shared resources, integration of service, improved data sharing. These are the other major advantages of client-server networking. Then in client-server, one of the main important server is web server. What is a web server? We know the web server is used for website hosting. Website hosting is provided using the web server. That is, the web server is a server that dedicated for website hosting. Web server is a server that is hardware or software dedicated to running this software. What is the use of this software? This dedicated for website hosting. There are number of web servers are available. Then here is a picture which show there are number of clients. They are connected to the internet. There is a web server. This server dedicated for website hosting. Number of websites are inside this server. When this client requests for a website, this server provides the copy of the website. Web server is a computer where web content is stored. Basically, where web server is used for hosting the website. The main job of a web server is to display the website content. Then how this website content is displayed? Then this website content is displayed using some web browsers. A web server communicates with a web browser using a protocol called Hypertext Transfer Protocol. There is a new term, web browser. Web browser, what is use of this web browser? The web browser requests the service from the web server. The web server accept the request and give the service. So, that means a web server request for a web page. The web server find the web page and display this web page on the web browser. There are number of web servers are used. They are first one, Apache HTTP server is a web server. Then ISS server is a web server. Lite is a web server. Sun Java system web is a web server. These are the major different types of web servers commonly used. Then next thing, which is a web browser. You know, the web browser request for a website. A web browser is a software application for accessing information on World Wide Web. Commonly used web browsers are, you know, the Google Chrome is a web browser. Microsoft Internet Explorer is a web browser. Mozilla Firefox is a web browser. Opera is a web browser. That is, there is a communication between web browser and web server. The web browser requests for serve website and web server provide the website. A web browser takes you anywhere on the internet. It retrieves information from other part of the web and display it on your desktop or your mobile device. Commonly used web browsers are Internet Explorer, then Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Opera. These are the commonly used web browsers. I think you got the basic idea about the client-server communication and more about this web server and web browser. Thank you.